History is filled with what-ifs, those tantalizing moments where a single decision could have sent the world spinning down a completely different path. But what if I told you there was a king, one single man, whose life and death was perhaps the most consequential what-if of all time? A king you've probably never heard of, but whose survival might have meant that the world you live in today, the very language you're hearing, the borders on our maps, would be completely, unrecognizably different. This isn't just a story about a forgotten monarch. It's the story of how our modern world was almost never born. His name was Henry, Prince of Wales. Born in 1594, he was the eldest son of King James I of England and VI of Scotland. And from the moment he could walk and talk, it was clear he was no ordinary prince. Imagine everything you'd want in a perfect future king. Henry was that, and more. He was tall, athletic, a master horseman, and brilliant with a lance in the tilt-yard. But he wasn't just some muscle-bound jock. He was whip-smart, fluent in multiple languages, and possessed a mind that devoured knowledge about everything from military strategy and shipbuilding to art and science. Unlike his scholarly, slightly awkward father, Henry was charismatic. He had a natural magnetism that drew people to him. Courtiers, soldiers, artists, and ambassadors from across Europe were all captivated by this young prince. He was seen as the shining hope of Protestant Europe, a figure destined for greatness. He was building his own court, separate from his father's, and it was a hub of energy and forward thinking. He collected art, commissioned grand architectural projects, and funded voyages of discovery. He was a Renaissance man in the truest sense, and all of England and much of Europe was holding its breath, waiting for the day he would become King Henry IX. His vision for England was radical. He saw a future where England wasn't just an island nation, but the heart of a powerful global Protestant alliance. At this time, Europe was a religious tinderbox. The Catholic Habsburg powers, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire were dominant. The continent was teetering on the edge of what would become the 30 Years' War, one of the most devastating conflicts in human history. King James, his father, was a pacifist. He desperately sought peace, trying to marry his children off to Catholic royalty to create balance. Henry thought this was madness. He saw it as appeasement, a sign of weakness. Henry's plan was bold. He wanted to forge a grand coalition of Protestant states: England, the Netherlands, the German princes, the Scandinavian kingdoms, to stand united against Habsburg dominance. He wasn't just talking about it. He was actively making it happen. He was in constant correspondence with Protestant leaders across the continent. He envisioned a powerful, modern English navy that would not only defend the realm, but project power across the seas, challenging Spanish control of the oceans and the New World. He was a militant, energetic Protestant crusader, ready to lead England onto the world stage as a military superpower. Think about the implications. If Henry had lived to become king, England would have likely plunged headfirst into the 30 Years' War, not as a minor player, but as its leader. With English money, English ships, and English soldiers leading a unified Protestant front, the war could have ended very differently and much sooner. Perhaps the devastation that wiped out nearly a third of Germany's population could have been averted. A decisive Protestant victory could have completely redrawn the map of Europe, shattering the power of Spain and the Holy Roman Empire for good. This brings us to his younger brother, a quiet, sickly boy who lived entirely in Henry's shadow. This was Charles. While Henry was jousting and planning wars, Charles was shy, had a stammer, and was often overlooked. Nobody paid him much mind. He was just the spare. The future belonged to Henry. And then, in the autumn of 1612, disaster struck. Henry, at the peak of his health and popularity, suddenly fell ill. He was just 18 years old. At first, everyone assumed it was a simple fever, but his condition worsened rapidly. The best doctors in the kingdom were summoned, but they were powerless. They tried everything: bizarre remedies and endless bloodletting, But the prince only grew weaker. The entire nation prayed for his recovery. Crowds gathered outside his palace, waiting for news, but it was no use. After a few agonizing weeks, on November 6, 1612, Henry, Prince of Wales, the shining hope of a generation, was dead. The official cause was typhoid fever. The grief that swept the nation was overwhelming. It was a genuine national trauma. His funeral was an epic spectacle of mourning, the likes of which hadn't been seen in generations. An entire country felt like it had lost its future. And in Henry's place, the overlooked, unprepared younger brother Charles became the new heir to the throne. And this is where history pivots. Charles, when he eventually became King Charles I, was a very different man from his brother. Where Henry was charismatic and pragmatic, Charles was aloof and dogmatic. He believed in the divine right of kings, not as a political theory, but as an absolute, unshakable truth. He saw compromise as weakness. He lacked his brother's political skill and his popular touch. He clashed constantly with Parliament over money and religion, leading to a bitter and bloody civil war that tore the nation apart. This English Civil War, a direct result of Charles's disastrous reign, ended with something previously unthinkable: the trial and execution of the king himself. This act sent shockwaves across Europe and fundamentally changed the relationship between the monarch and the people in England forever. It led to the rise of Parliament, the establishment of a constitutional monarchy, and laid the groundwork for the democratic principles that would later inspire the American Revolution. Now, let's play What If? What if Henry had lived? As king, his firm, Protestant, and anti-Spanish stance would have been incredibly popular. His military focus would have meant a strong relationship with Parliament, who were always more willing to fund wars against Catholic Spain than to pay for the king's courtly extravagances. A civil war under a King Henry IX seems almost impossible to imagine. He had the charisma and political savvy to manage Parliament in a way his father and brother never could. So, if there's no English Civil War, there's no execution of the king. If there's no execution, the radical political ideas about parliamentary supremacy and the rights of the subject might never have taken such deep root. The glorious revolution of 1688 might never have happened. And without those crucial steps, the entire political development of the English-speaking world would be different. Would the American colonists have had the same philosophical basis to declare independence from a popular and powerful King Henry X or XI? It's highly unlikely. The United States as we know it might never have existed. And what about the British Empire? Henry's vision was for a Protestant maritime empire. He would have likely focused English colonial efforts on aggressively challenging Spain and Portugal in the Americas, and building a network of Protestant trading posts. The shape, size, and nature of the British Empire could have been completely different. Perhaps North America would have become a battleground between a Protestant English empire and a Catholic Spanish one, with a very different outcome. The death of one 18-year-old boy in 1612 set off a chain reaction that nobody could have foreseen. It led directly to his brother Charles becoming king, which led to the English Civil War, which led to the rise of parliamentary democracy, which in turn inspired the American Revolution and shaped the modern political landscape of the West. If Henry had lived, he might have become the great Protestant warrior king he was destined to be, a British version of Charlemagne. He might have saved Germany from devastation and crushed the Habsburgs. But in doing so, he might have also prevented the birth of modern democracy. It's a staggering thought. The world we live in, with its democracies, its specific borders, and its balance of power, isn't the result of some inevitable grand plan. It's a fragile construction, built on countless chance events, accidents, and what-ifs. And one of the biggest what-ifs of them all was a handsome, brilliant prince who caught a fever and died just a little too soon. The king who almost changed the world might have actually created a world we wouldn't recognize, and perhaps one we wouldn't even want. His death, a tragedy in its time, might just be the reason you and I are living in the world we are today. Thanks for watching. If you find these historical what-ifs as fascinating as I do, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the turning points that shaped our world. See you next time.